Good afternoon, everybody. We're here in Dudley, which is the second largest town in the country. At the moment we're having a walk around the historic quarter. Behind me you can see the famous castle and the priory ruins. We're here this afternoon to interview Will Duckworth, who up until recently was the deputy leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. He's also a councillor from Dudley, and we're here to talk to him about the Green Party nationally and locally and in the Midlands. Hi.
Hi.
So I'm here with Will Duckworth. He was, until recently, the deputy leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. Now this year, the Green Party's actually, the profile of the Green Party has risen quite dramatically. You did very well in the European elections. You've now got more MEPs in the European Parliament than the Liberal Democrats. And hopefully they're going to make gains in 2015, are hoping to make gains in 2015 in the general election. I think some would say UKIP and the Green Party have a similar bent in that they paint themselves as anti-establishment parties, and they're quite small at the moment. Yet the UKIP won the European elections and had a lot of media coverage. Why do you think that was the case?
Well, it's easy to say you're anti-establishment, especially when you've got a very high-profile leader who spent all of his life either as a banker or a politician, which are the two most hated professions in the country probably, and are really letting the country down. We are a real alternative, not just a Lib Dem, Labour, Conservative, with nasty anti-immigration tendencies, which I think is really what UKIP are.
Because I understand that the Green Party are in favour of a referendum on
yes,
the European Union.
We're happy for a referendum, but we are very, very positive that we've got to stay in the in Europe,
yeah, for
the sake of the environment and for the sake of protection of workers' rights, which is something that UKIP don't want to do and don't want to tell you they're doing.
No, I mean a big issue that the Green Party are campaigning against at the moment is the TTIP, which is the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership,
yes,
between the United States and Europe. And there's obviously some kind of issues which the Green Party are and other groups, I should say, are very concerned about.
Yeah, well, we've been campaigning on this for 18 months now. Was the first time I started campaigning against it, because it's an agreement made in secret, and it would not just open up trade, it means that any sort of contract that goes out from government has to be open to all sorts of people, and that you can't put things like, at the moment, lots of councils say, if you're going to work for us, you've got to pay a living wage.
Yeah.
But such things are impossible if TTIP goes through. And of course it's been negotiated in total and absolute secrecy, so that people don't know what's happening, and it's a deliberate attempt to push something through that will be great for big businesses, but will cost countries and governments billions of pounds, because they can't then, if there's a change of government, get out of an unfair contract that's been decided in the past by a government that is on its way out.
Because I think there's lots of issues in Birmingham where we suffer from the AMI contract for the road servicing, or Service Birmingham, which is done by Capita, and it's a 20-year contract.
Yes.
The amount of money they have to spend on it, I mean, even just to get out of it, is quite mind-blowing, especially when at a time of sort of austerity for councils.
Yes, and it means that if one country or local government wants to get out of a contract, and if there's a change of government at the moment, you can.
Yeah.
And then the private company can actually sue the country for all the money they would have made if the contract had gone through. There's currently a case, which is a very similar contract in Canada, which would cost them about £15 billion.
Oh.
And of course the arbiters of these contracts aren't any elected body, they're financiers from around the world who are the ones who stand to gain if governments go under or charge a fortune. It's really, really frightening. It's something that, as I say, we've been aware of and pushing for a long time. It's great that a number of other people are getting on board now.
Yeah. definitely. You mentioned the commitment to paying a living wage, and that was the big centrepiece announcement of the Natalie Bennett, the Green Party leader's speech at the conference last week. Her plan, she wants to raise a living wage to £10 an hour by 2020. I think my main question is how the Green Party want to go about doing that. How they're going to encourage businesses to pay £10 an hour if they're not already doing so.
Well, the idea is, first of all, as many councils have done, but I haven't been able to persuade Dudley Council to agree to pay, first of all of its workers the living wage, which would, or in this case it will be £10 an hour, and then pass on to subcontractors that they've got to do it. And of course, when you start doing that, you've then got so many companies going along with it, you can legally enforce it the way we've legally enforced the minimum wage.
I suppose the theme of the Green Party Congress is quite optimistic.
Yes.
How do you expect the Greens to do here in the West Midlands next year?
Well, it's hugely optimistic because our membership is actually going through the roof now. We've got about 50% membership increase over the last 12 months or so, which means we've got a lot more money, people paying their membership subscription. £10.50 a year it costs me, and we are making inroads all over the place. We've moved from 4 or 5 years ago, we had 3 councillors on 3 different councils in the West Midlands. We've now got 25 on 10 different councils, and we're the official opposition in Solihull, and we'll be standing a target general election candidate in Solihull, who we hope to do very well. They might not win this time, but we certainly intend to make inroads there.
And recently in Dudley South, the Conservative MP, sitting MP Chris Kelly announced he's stepping down. Do you see an opportunity for the Green Party to make an impact in that constituency, in that election?
Well, we certainly should, because we are an alternative, and a lot of people are saying, oh well, we need to get this government out. But when you actually look at the spending plans of Labour, they're not intended to change anything. So if we really want a difference, if we really want to fight austerity, if we really want something better for the poor and disadvantaged people of this country, then we've got to actually put pressure on by voting in more Greens and more people voting Greens, even if they don't get into Parliament. A high proportion of the vote will ensure that people start listening to us more carefully.
I think a big element of the next election will hopefully be getting younger people to vote.
Well,
And what would you say to a young person who's not sure about which way they're going to vote? Why should they vote Green?
Well, I would ask them if the party they're intending to vote for has got one of the leadership team of 3 who is under 30. There are very few places, very few political parties where young people have got the same sort of opportunities as they have in the Green Party. We've got a section of the young Greens who I work with quite regularly who are doing wonderful things. They've started a 10-to-1 campaign in universities so that they're trying to point out that the amount that the highest paid people in universities get is many, many, many times more than the people who are actually doing the work on the ground, and they're trying to reduce that to 10-to-1, and that was endorsed at the conference. And we are here to try and make the world a better place for future generations. We're about the only party who is trying to think more than the next 5-year term of office. We're trying to plan for a decent country and a decent world for the future, not just for now. And that's a future that you young people will be living in when I'm long gone.
I hope to be living in it. What would you say are the major environmental challenges in this region, particularly for the Black Country?
There's huge problems here at the moment, certainly with air pollution. Out of my living room window, I can see the Lister Road chimneys belching out what I'm told is only steam, but sometimes it doesn't smell like only steam, sometimes it doesn't look like only steam. And if you actually test the air quality, as they have been doing in the streets around Netherton and very many parts of the Black Country, it falls below EU regulations. It's dangerous. It's killing people. More people are dying from air pollution than from being knocked down in the roads, let alone other things. They reckon that about 20% of people die early because of air pollution, which is a frightening statistic, really is.
Wow. I suppose that's quite shocking, really. I mean, especially in this region, 20% is quite a shocking figure.
Yes.
To put it in context.
But it's only die earlier than they would. It's not that is their main cause of death, but
No,
it is still terrifying that it does affect so many people. Certainly kills a lot more people than sharks do.
But, well, unless there's any sharks in the country anytime soon.
Just there was on the news this morning something about somebody has died from a shark attack in Australia, so it hits the international news.
Because it's British, I think.
Yes, yeah.
That's important. I suppose you mentioned air pollution as an issue to tackle. What other kind of issues do you deal with in your ward work?
Oh, in the ward work, there's huge amount of issues. There's so many people hit by things like the bedroom tax, so many people hit by reduction to services. We've got somebody, I'm sure she won't mind, I won't mention her name or where she is, who needs a disability scooter, has a disability scooter. Social services, she lives in a flat with, they've now fitted heavy doors so she can't use those, and the council is supposed to build a little shed for her to keep the scooter in. She's been waiting 6 months. The cuts and the cuts to services are terrifying. There's somebody else, there's a street lamp which has gone out, and they thought it was just a bulb. They've come, and it's going to take over a month to get that fixed. And this is a street where there is only 2 lamps in the street, so that being out causes huge problems. And there have been break-ins in the house. There have been about 3 in the last fortnight. So the local residents are terrified, and these are elderly people and infirm people who are absolutely terrified because they are suffering the sharp end of these cuts. They may seem minor cuts to people, and people are always complaining about the grass, because at the moment we've got problems with grass cutting, the weather's not being friendly, but we've cut the services so badly that it can't cope anymore, and we are facing further cuts. And the current leaders of Dudley Council are refusing to do anything serious about it, refusing to increase council tax. Granted, it's not a very nice tax, but at least if you increase it within the rules of the government, you can start to mitigate some of the awful effects of these cuts.
I mean, in Birmingham, they introduced a green tax, they introduced wheelie bins, which you have to pay something like £30 a year, or probably a bit more.
Yeah.
And the outcry over this measure was quite
Yes.
hilarious. The
Yeah.
Conservative Party basically used it to basically force a few Labour councillors out of their seats.
Yes, yeah, and it's very easy to jump on populist measures that affect a lot of people and a lot of people who vote, but the real nasty cuts are hitting the poor, the vulnerable, the young, and as we know, young people don't vote very much, but they need to. I mean, young people's minimum wage is something like £2.50 an hour if you're on an apprenticeship, and that is just not a decent wage. It's not feasible for anyone to live on that. Even proper minimum wage when you're not in an apprenticeship for young people, it's ridiculously low. And saying that you can't qualify for housing benefit until you hit 25. For goodness sake, these are real human beings. You can't treat people like kids when they're 23. It's completely dreadful the way they are letting people down, and coming up with populist measures like, oh no, we'll give you free green wheelie bins, where most of the stuff that goes in the green bins should be in your own compost heap anyway.
Because I think the Green Party proposed the citizens' income.
Yes, that's
the big welfare idea, the idea of their welfare policy.
Yeah.
Can you just explain a little bit about that?
Yes, the citizens' income is something I am passionate about. It's a really, really I think, brilliant idea, thought up many, many years ago. But the idea is, not very long ago, we used to have child benefit where every child got a certain amount of money to help their parents get them through. And this idea is every person, every citizen in the country is given a certain amount of money, which may not be enough to live on decently, but is enough to survive on. It would be nice to make it about £100 a week, but probably about 60 is what we're more likely to be able to introduce in the short term. But the wonderful thing is it's not means tested. So think of all the awful bureaucracy you'd be able to get rid of. The savings on that alone would be immense. And at the moment, people look down on these dole scroungers, these benefit scroungers, but if everybody's getting it, there's nothing to look down on. And of course, by the time you're earning around average income, the taxation system would make up for it, so you wouldn't be getting a tax-free amount at the beginning, so you would pay tax as soon as you start earning. So it would actually mean that for most people, or for the median person, it makes no difference. But for poorer people, it would make a massive difference to have that sort of income. And one of the other things you were saying, what do I have to deal with? It's people who are so depressed and so upset, they can't get to the job centre. They literally are so ill with depression and other mental health problems that to get out of bed and get to the job centre to sign on is so difficult. Very often they end up in the black economy because they cannot cope with going and dealing with this horrendous bureaucracy and the ever-present and growing threat of being cut. And now you're no longer entitled. Why not? And we've had to deal with a number of people who are entitled and have done everything, and they're still getting sanctioned. That being sanctioned is a common fear with so many people now. So citizens' income removes all of that, and it actually means that people can do what they are interested in. They can paint, draw, sculpt. They can do a little bit of work here and there. They can work on allotments, grow food and do something like that. And by that time, you've got a decent wage, and it can make such a lot of difference to the mental health of the whole country. I think it would save a fortune because we've got growing problems with mental health, with people being bullied and stressed at work so much.
And the mental health service is quite a bit as well.
Yes,
several reports about it on the BBC website, for example.
Yeah, being cut and costing the country a fortune as well.
As Social Breakfast is a social enterprise for young people, encouraging young people to set up their own social enterprises. It's quite a big topic for us.
Yeah.
How do the Greens propose to encourage social enterprise?
Well, we've just been talking about it. The citizens' income would be fabulous for social enterprise. It would mean people had got that backup, had got that basic income so they could survive. And from that position, you can use that money to rent somewhere out, and you can build any sort of enterprise you're interested in very, very easily. You can start off non-profit making and build it to profit making. And you can do this with the basic citizens' income, because at the moment you can't do it if you're on job seekers allowance, because you're not allowed to be doing anything, and you've got to be going and signing on and proving that you're applying for 30 jobs a week or whatever it is that you're not going to get anyway. But the citizens' income would open it up massively. It would be really wonderful to allow young people to do these things.
Yeah, that's good. It's a very positive message.
Yeah.
So, very positive message.
Yes, good. Great.
Okay, well, it's great talking to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Top. Thanks a lot.
Hi guys, well obviously you've just heard our interview with Will Duckworth from the Green Party. I thought it was a really interesting interview. It showed the Green Party in a really positive light, and showed that I think they're really trying to reach out to young people who believe that things could be changed, both politically, economically and socially. Overall very positive.